Good morning. I am Giselle Embordado from 3A1 VS Criminology. So I'm going to discuss to you the phases of polygraph techniques. So the phase 1 is about preliminary preparations. In this stage is is about the initial interview with the investigator handling a case or person requesting it. The group involved in this stage are the victim, the complainant, the suspect, and the witnesses. So, under the phase 1, preliminary preparation is we have preliminary observation. This is about the behavioral observation of the subject begin from the time he enters the reception room until he is escorted into the examination room and must be recorded by a secretary or receptionist. So what to observe? What to observe are the subject general conduct or behavior while in the waiting room. This will give the examiner a clue or guide in the most effective handling of the subject, particularly with regard to his possible resentment toward the test or the other attitudes which should be understood and alleviated before the actual administration of the test. So next is the phase 2, the pre-test interview. This is the stage of interview of the subject. The primary purpose of the pre-test interview is to prepare or condition the subject for the test. The following should take considerations: the appraisal of the subject's constitutional right, obtain subject's consent to undergo polygraph test by signing a statement of consent, taking of personal data of the subject, determining his or her suitability as a subject, evaluating the psychological preparation of the subject, and informing the subject of his involvement with the case. So, the following rights of the subject that must be informed clearly to her or to him. Those are the right to remain silent. Anything she say may be used in favor or against him or her. The right to have lawyer or his or her own choice, and the right to refuse. So next is the phase 3, the examination proper. After the pre-test interview, the examiner should proceed to the placement of attachment of polygraph sensors. The first to be attached is the pneumograph, followed by the cardiosphygmograph and the galvanograph sensors. So in this phase, dito na ready yung subject para sa kanyang test, kung saan siya ilalagyan na ng pneumograph, sunod ang cardiosphygmograph and the galvanograph sensor. So, the examiner review all the questions with the subject before the actual examination is made. The examiner should discourage any comments or statement by the subject. Test instrument must give to the subject upon completion of the necessary preliminary preparation. Okay, so let's go to the evaluation of polygraph test result. The basic measurement of an effective polygraph evaluation and analysis of result comes from the factors affecting the instrument used, level of training and skill of the examiner, condition of the subject, condition of the examination room, and the actual examination process. The polygraph test consists of the subject or person through a list of prepared questions in a planned sequence comprising of not more than 12. At least three test charts are taken, each lasting not more than 4 minutes with a rest interval of 5 to 10 minutes between charts. So, we have two general types of question to be constructed. The general question test or the GQT and the peak of tension test, the PTT. The general question test is the most commonly applied in the polygraph test. The peak of tension test, the PTT, which is usually used as just supplementary test. There are also 5 sets of tests that may be applied during the polygraph examination process. First is the test 1, general question test. The purpose of this test is to get the standard tracing of the subject and establish a true telling pattern for the initial part of the record. Second test is the number test or the psychological test. The purpose is to check the possible deliberate distortion with the chosen number is asked and to obtain a chart wherein the subject is not under stress. So the third test is the spot responder. The purpose of this test is to determine the responsiveness of the subject to the crucial question on spot responses. The fourth test is the mixed question. The purpose of this test is to compare the degree of reaction between control and relevant question. And last, the fifth test is the silence answer test or the SAT. This is the confirmatory test. So, how does the general question test or GQT formulated? So, the GQT consists of series of relevant and irrelevant questions as in a planned order. Questions are so arranged as to make a comparison of response to relevant questions with a subject's norm made during the answering of irrelevant questions. So what is relevant question? Relevant question is leaded or material questions. These questions are pertaining to the issue under investigation. It is equally important to limit the number of relevant questions to avoid discomfort to that subject. Relevant questions must be very specific to obtain an accurate result. Functionally, relevant questions are directly related to the offense under investigation. In pre-employment and periodic screening, the area of the interest may be a series of relevant questions such as, have you ever been fired from a job? Or, have you stolen more than 50 in 1 year from any of your employers? Relevant questions are further classified according to its stimulation effect when applied, namely, the strong relevant or primary relevant question and secondary or weak relevant. The strong relevant or primary relevant question, which has an intense relationship to the crime or problem being considered. This is intended to produce strong emotional responses in guilty subject. Example, did you steal Nick's iPad? So, secondary or weak relevant are questions that concern with elements of the crime and deals mostly on guilty knowledge and partial involvement. For example, between 10 o'clock to 12 o'clock in a.m. on February 10, 2011, did you open the table drawer of Mr. De La Cruz? Further, the weak relevance classified into the following. Sacrifice relevant or DYAT questions. Do you intend to answer truthfully? The example of this is the regarding the stolen iPad, do you intend truthfully to answer each question about that? Next is the knowledge question. Example of this is, do you know for sure who stole the iPad of Nick? Next is the evidence connecting question. Example of this is, were the footprints outside the house of Nick's is yours? So next is the control questions. Control questions are used for purposes of comparison. Essentially, truthful subjects are believed by polygraph examiners to be more concerned and thus more physiologically aroused about control that relevant question. The response to both control and relevance question are compared. Control questions have two kinds, the primary control questions and the secondary control questions. The example of primary control questions are, before reaching the age of 28, have you ever stolen anything? The example of the secondary control question, have you ever stolen anything from this locality? So next is the irrelevant questions. So what is irrelevant questions? Irrelevant question is unleaded or immaterial questions. Kung sa relevant questions, it is leaded and material questions na kung saan may kinalaman yung tanong sa case or under investigation. Dito naman sa irrelevant question, wala siyang kinalaman or malayo sa investigation na ginagawa. So, example nito ay yung did you eat? Did you eat today? Do you smoke? Are you wearing brown leather jacket now? Do you believe in Burgos Street, Bacolod City? Kung saan yun yung mga walang kinalaman na tanong sa kaso. So, this is the example set of general question test or the GQT. We have 11 questions. Number 1, have you ever been called by the name Pedro? Irrelevant. Is today Monday? Irrelevant. Do you have anything to do with the robbery at SM Shoe Mart last night? Weak? Relevant. Are you over 20 years of age? Irrelevant. Were you one of those who robbed at the SM last night? Strong? Relevant. Have been involved in a robbery case this year? Control question? Relevant. Do you drink water? Irrelevant. Was the pair of gloves found at SM is yours? Evidence connecting? Relevant. Number 9, do you know anyone involved in the robbery at SM last night? Knowledge question? Relevant. Number 10, have you ever been involved in any robbery in your entire life? Secondary control? Relevant. And last, have you deliberately lied to any question I have asked you? Relevant check question. Optional. So that would be all, and thank you for listening and watching. God bless.